Okay, good morning everybody. My name is Ed. I'm the instructor for today, mostly for most of the English sessions in the UNO school. A little thing what we're trying to do, we are discussing hot topics, developments with a political background, a social background, international background, to study together and to exchange opinions and ideas. And the idea is that when you go overseas, things work a little bit differently. People have different cultures, so it's very important that you not only understand, but you also know how to engage, how to discuss, how to debate, how to form an opinion, and this is something that we're trying to do in UNO School. So today we will look at Pakistan. Pakistan, the land of the pure. That is the exact meaning of the word Pakistan. Pure. The country, as we can see here on the map, is located next to Afghanistan, Iran, India, and here we have a very interesting area that we will look at in detail further down the line. And here we have the flag of Pakistan with the color green, the dark green of the color of Muslim religion, with the moon and the star, which are symbols of the Islam. So, and of course, I should not forget its borders also to China. So very much in short, some key figures, some key data about Pakistan. The total population is 210 million people, so it's a large population, and 7 million of those people live overseas. Basically, there was a kind of diaspora, as they call it, people moving out of Pakistan to build up a new life in a different country, and part of it has to do with history. Quite a few Pakistani moved together with the British to their colonies, taking different roles as, for example, small entrepreneurs or soldiers or all kinds of roles. So there are a significant number of people, Pakistani, living overseas, and they are also an important source of foreign currency, because they remit quite a substantial amount of money back to Pakistan. The GDP per head, that's the nominal GDP, not the GDP in purchasing power parity terms, but the nominal GDP, so what you actually hold in your hand, is 1,350 US dollars. It's very low. It's among the lowest in the world. The Gini coefficient is, well, that makes sense. It's medium. That's mainly because there is no money. So the Gini, I don't know if you're familiar with the term. It's an indication of how even the income is spread between people who have the lowest, the group that has the lowest income and the group that has the highest income. Gini is medium. The HDI, the Health Development and Income Index. This is an index that basically is a basket that has says something about the health situation, so the life expectancy at birth, the development income, so how well are people being educated, and income index. Now, income, as we have seen, is low, but also in terms of development, Pakistan scores relatively low in terms of education, and this is partly due to the fact that women do not have access to good education, and life expectancy in Pakistan is also not that high. But given their demographics, there is a potential. That doesn't mean that it will materialize. There is a potential that Pakistan may become the 18th largest economy by 2050, and I think there was some skepticism when we discussed that number during our Saturday session, but that is according to people, and they're of course to make such kind of forecast that is very speculative, because many things may happen that tilt the scale in a different direction. But there is a potential, just to say that it is not all doom and gloom. There might be potential to actually develop for Pakistan to develop into a larger economy, to get out of this out of the situation of poverty. 27 Japanese businesses. Now, actually, I found a statistic that, or I found a website that shows the Japanese companies in Pakistan. And I remember that you mentioned there are a number of very large companies there, but what I found is more smaller companies, like suppliers to pharmaceutical industry, making instrument makers, but not really very big players, and most of them are probably more joint ventures with Japanese companies, so they don't really show with their show the Japanese company name, but fisheries, for example, instruments, peace instruments. Okay. So these are the smaller ones, but what are the bigger ones in
major automotive companies such as Suzuki and Toyota in Karachi and Honda in Lahore. Honda has another factory for motorcycle.
They assemble motorcycles in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are small players and probably more related to companies that started joint ventures with Pakistani companies. So the number of businesses in Japanese businesses in Pakistan is surprisingly large, I thought, given the instability of the country, given the history of the country. It is surprisingly large, and maybe in our discussion we can dig a little bit deeper into the backgrounds of that, of the large number and the opportunity that Pakistan would offer to Japanese businesses. What kind of products does Pakistan export? For example, wheat, iron, steel, cement. Cement they play a rather big role, a global role, and textile. Textile, of course, there are other countries like Bangladesh that are much bigger than Pakistan. But Pakistan's textile export is significant, and I think actually, if you look at it as a percentage of their total export, they take the largest share. 97% of the people adhere to the Muslim religion. 15% of those is Shia, and 85% of those is Sunni. The Shia group is a minority, but if you look at it in terms of the total number of people in Pakistan, it's the second largest group outside of Iran. Shia is a minority group within the Muslim world, but it's still a rather significant number of people of the Shia group. Looking at the composition of GDP, agriculture, 25%, which is large, which is a big percentage, the primary sector. Industry, 21%, which is relatively low, and services is 53.1. Small traders, small shops, it's all rather small scale. And of course, nuclear arms. Pakistan is known for their nuclear arms. They are a nuclear power together with India. They not only hold nuclear arms, they also are known to have shared some of their knowledge with other states like North Korea. Have been engaging in exchanging know-how and supplying other countries like North Korea with equipment that enable these countries to spread their know-how, and I was informed on last Saturday, last week, that actually the know-how from Pakistan is from my home country, the Netherlands. Urenco. Yeah, Urenco is no more because of the scandal, but yeah. Okay, so that is in short Pakistan. Now, looking at the history of Pakistan is very, they have a very rich history. It's looking back to 1500 BC, so very far. There was a Hindu culture that lasted approximately 1,000 years. It was succeeded by the Persians, the people that currently known as Iran, starting at 500 BC to approximately 150 years after Christ, when it was mainly a Greek Buddhist culture. Greek Alexander the Great, and then Islamization, which is very important, which we saw before. 97% of the population adheres to the Islam. So that Islamization was from 650 to 1100, and then was a domination by England, but not exactly by England, but for the first approximately almost 100 years, it was ruled by the British East India Company. So it was not a colony as such. It was more of a corporate enterprise. The British East India Company controlled Pakistan. They had an army there, but the army that controlled Pakistan was actually comprised only of 20% of the soldiers were British. The other 80% were hired soldiers, hired hands. And basically the soldiers they had completely different position within that army, and that eventually lasted to an uprising of the local soldiers against the British East India Company, which led to a revolt. So the soldiers revolted against the British, and then the British Empire, the country of England, the British, they stepped up and they stepped in and they took over and took control, and it became a part of the British. It became under the British Crown. That also lasted for roughly 90 years, almost 100 years, till 1947. During that period, around 1900, the first signs of independence, a strive for independence, started to grow, but not only independence from England, but also independence from India. So the All India Muslim League, their primary goal was basically to become independent of India. The secondary goal was to become independent of England. So mostly they worked together with the British. In India there was a very strong sentiment to become independent of England. But the Pakistani sided with the British in order to achieve their goal. So they were looking for the help of the British for them to become independent. So in 1900, the two-nation theory started to come up. That means that Pakistan was to become independent from India. So there should be a country for Muslims and there should be a country for Hindus. But that was the two-nation theory. They sided with the British. Then in 1947,
What does it mean, pro-British?
pro-British. They basically sided with the British. The Indians sided against. They were very much against the British. That they wanted to become independent from the British Empire. But Pakistan wanted to become independent from India. And while Pakistan was an integral part of India at that time, or of the British, the Indian Empire, Pakistan wanted to create a country specifically for Muslims, Pakistan. So, which materialized in 1947 when West and East Pakistan.
My question is, what is mean pro-British?
Pro-British means that they sided with the British. They supported the British because the British could help them to become independent from India.
Oh, okay.
So this idea started to gain foothold, to become more
Well,
popular.
actually, 1945 or 6, British supported India were going to be independent.
British really, I mean, basically they could not hold India any longer after World War II. They became independent, and then the idea of two nations was materialized. So they created India, they created Pakistan, plus Bangladesh. Bangladesh was not Bangladesh at the time; that was East. East Pakistan. So West Pakistan is Pakistan as we know it today, and East Pakistan was what we know as Bangladesh. Actually, a little bit larger because we had an eastern part and a western part. But roughly speaking, it was Bangladesh plus Pakistan, which was one country, and there was a big stretch of land in between, like thousands of kilometers in between. So it was almost like there was an ocean in between, but it was actually land. And India and East-West Pakistan, that lasted till 1971, when Bangladesh became independent and Pakistan became Pakistan and not West Pakistan. During this period, Pakistan was dominant over Bangladesh. Bangladesh had a very large population, but were poorer than Pakistan, and Pakistan dominated them, and they had the army to dominate them. The independence started in, or actually really started to materialize by 1970 when a big cyclone hit Bangladesh. And many people lost their lives, and there was a big revolt from the people in Bangladesh against the Pakistan movement, because they felt that the Pakistan government didn't do, or their government at that time didn't do enough to help the people. So many people lost their lives, and which was in vain, was not necessary. So this created an even stronger sentiment against West Pakistan. Then during the election that followed, basically Bangladesh kind of won the election, but in Pakistan they couldn't give up on Bangladesh, so they moved in with their army, and there was a genocide with the number of people who lost their lives estimated between 30,000 and 3 million, which depends on which side you're listening to.
Was it the 1971?
1971. Yes. But a huge number of people lost their lives in Bangladesh. A very bloody suppression. Finally, after approximately 6-7 months, India stepped in, and within a couple of weeks, the war was over. Pakistan was beaten, and they left, and Bangladesh became independent. And then Kashmir, and maybe we have Kashmir. This is Kashmir. What we see here, this area. This area is contested by 3 countries: Pakistan, but also by India and by China. So this is a very significant piece of land, and very significant in terms of turmoil, in terms of drug problems, in terms of poverty, and also in terms of terrorism.
You mean an opium area?
Yes. It's basically an area that's not under control by a single state. And this is an area where actually, well, let's take a step back. Because let's look at Kashmir in itself. So what we see here, maybe it's a little bit small, but I believe you received handouts. We have areas that are administered by India, areas that are administered by Pakistan, and area that is administered by China. Now, if we look at the population, the largest, by far the largest population is administered by India. So the Kashmir Valley, Jammu and Ladakh. But what's especially interesting is this area. So this is the Kashmir Valley with a population of 4 million people and a Muslim population of 95% is administered by India, a Hindu country that administers a Muslim majority. Only 4% of the population is Hindu. So there is a strong inclination for those people to not wanting to be part of India. Here, the majority of at the Pakistan, the side of Pakistan, that it's 99 and 100% is Muslim. But we can see that there are different areas, different backgrounds, and it's basically a kind of a melting pot over there of different religions, different people with different ethnic backgrounds. For example, in Pakistan, there is it's mainly Pashtun people, and Pashtun are basically they have a large group of Pashtuns living in Afghanistan. So these people, because it's not strongly controlled, you have the Pashtun in Afghanistan, which side with the Pashtun in Pakistan, and they move over the border, and they form a threat for stability, and they are really a breeding ground for terrorism. So let's first have a look. Brief history. This is from The Economist. It's only 2 minutes, but it tries to explain about the Kashmir wars, wars that took place in 1948, 1965, and 1999.
In 1947, Britain prepared to end nearly a century of rule over the Indian subcontinent and its 390 million people. Hindus were concentrated in central and southern India, Muslims in Bengal and the northwest. A British commission divided the territory into majority Muslim Pakistan and majority Hindu India. In the chaos that followed partition, 15 million people fled across the new borders and 500,000 died in rioting. 4 border regions saw the worst of it: Sindh, Bengal, Punjab, and Jammu and Kashmir. Among India's 565 princely states, only Jammu and Kashmir had a Hindu Maharaja ruling over a majority Muslim population. India claimed the Maharaja decided to join India. Pakistan disputed this. In October, Pashtuns from Pakistan's northwest frontier province invaded Kashmir with the support of Pakistan's government. In October of 1947, the Maharaja left Srinagar. Indian troops were airlifted in, but were ill prepared for the cold and altitude. Pakistan responded with its own campaign, and India approached the United Nations to broker a ceasefire, which went into effect on January 1, 1949, establishing a line of control, but no final border. In 1962, China attacked India in the Aksai Chin region of Kashmir, easily defeating India's poorly equipped Himalayan troops. China retains control of the Aksai Chin today. 3 years later, encouraged by China's success, Pakistan sent troops across the line of control dressed as Kashmiri locals. The fighting proved brief and inconclusive. On September 22nd, both sides agreed to a UN-backed ceasefire. Another brief war broke out over East Pakistan in 1971, this one conclusive. East Pakistan seceded, 10 million refugees streamed into West Bengal, and with India's help, Bangladesh was born. In 1999, after both India and Pakistan had successfully tested nuclear weapons, full-scale war was barely avoided when Pakistan tried to seize the Kargil region of Indian-controlled Kashmir. At one time, an average of 1 Pakistani soldier every 4 days and 1 Indian soldier every other day died at the Siachen Glacier, and the terrorist attacks in Mumbai in November 2008 were reportedly planned by senior members of Lashkar-e-Toiba, which Pakistan created to fight Indian domination of Kashmir, and which India accuses of terrorist atrocities all over India. The conflict simmers. In 2007, 777 people were killed in violence in Jammu and Kashmir, bringing the two-decade total above 47,000 by India's official count. According to some Kashmiris, the total is twice that number.
So very, very quick.
Many people dead.
Many people die in this conflict. Many people die. So this all starts when the British come up with a cunning plan to divide India in a Muslim area and a Hindu area, which in itself, in design, and this is not untypical for the British, was almost designed to create diversity and create instability. The Kashmir region is very unstable. I mean, maybe this is naive, but I think that basically Kashmir was probably best off if it were to be self-ruled and not dominated by either Pakistan or India. But if they could become independent. But they were put there and left there, and they were an immediate source for both India and Pakistan to exercise their claims. As we saw in this very brief video, Pakistan has been trying to control the Kashmir region because they feel that as a Muslim country they are entitled to. Part of the Kashmir region was being dominated by a Maharaja, an Indian Maharaja, who ruled an area with a large majority of Muslims. So Pakistan wanted to make their claim. In that strive, Pakistan has lost many wars with India. I think 4 wars with India already, which led to a lot of frustration in the army. And this is something that still continues today. India is the arch enemy of Pakistan. They both have nuclear weapons, and this created a dangerous situation. Bill Clinton, like many before him, I learned, has mentioned publicly that this is the most dangerous place on earth, this Kashmir region.
So India and the Pakistan conflict is more larger than between China.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Well, China. The role of China is interesting because China also takes part of the region, and because China took it from India, Pakistan felt closer to China, so they established good relations, and this dates back from the moment that China attacked.
Pakistan and China, they do not have conflict each other, right?
No. Actually, they have good relations. There are lots of investments by China in Pakistan. There is I think there is a pipeline or a pipeline in the main. China has built a port in the south of Pakistan.
So Kashmir problem is just only India and China.
The Kashmir no. It's mainly the largest problem is between Pakistan and India.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yes.
But they do not, Pakistan and India, they do not have problem for Kashmir.
Pakistan and India do not have a problem about Kashmir. I think eventually, if China was to take all, they would have a problem, but that's not in the interest of China at the moment. See, because basically there is and we will see that later. There is a big interest of China to have good relations with Pakistan.
So India and China, they do not have conflict, but they have conflict, but they are also many people dead in the past.
In that area.
Pakistan, India, for this area.
So, I think the main conflict is between India and Pakistan.
I feel that I thought recently they have India and China have lots of conflict with each other. I thought this is a big issue instead of Pakistan. But Pakistan and India have a lot of problems.
Yes, well, when we look at this Kashmir area, if we look at the map here, we can see that the position of Pakistan and also they have access to the Gulf here, and here is China. So this position here is very interesting for China because it could give them access to oil if they go through Pakistan. So China is also actively developing and investing in infrastructure, and so there is a direct geopolitical interest of China in Pakistan.
I forgot what's the name of the bay. And, what's the name of, I forgot the name of the bay.
Bengal Bay.
Bengal?
Yeah, this Bengal.
That's the other side.
Indian Ocean and Bengal.
The name of the
Oh,
bay. Bay.
Bay. Oh, okay. That is Gwadal.
Gwadal.
Yeah,
Yes,
and the
Gwadal
Pakistan
Bay.
side. It's very strategic point.
Excuse me, could you explain a little bit about Afghanistan as Pashtun and guerrillas?
Actually, that's the next. That's the next. So looking at Kashmir, Bin Laden in 2002 gave us one of the reasons why America is the enemy of the Muslim world, is that we fight America because of its support for India on the Kashmir issue. This is actually like Bin Laden, Al-Qaeda has designated the United States as the arch enemy. This is strategically speaking a good move because it gave a lot of support for Al-Qaeda and Bin Laden. If you look at ISIS now, for example, they don't have this issue. They have a more like a regional issue. They just want to establish a caliphate. But Bin Laden was very specific. That also illustrates how strategically important the Kashmir issue is within the Muslim world. And actually, before I started to study this, I was not aware of the significance of Kashmir, but it's a very big issue.
Well, at that time, Bin Laden in 2002, he was support to Pakistan. At that
Of
time.
course.
Also, including Al Qaeda.
Yes.
Pakistan, Al Qaeda.
Pakistan and Al Qaeda have a very good working relationship. Well, not officially, but unofficially, because what Pakistan has been doing, because the military they are not a match for India. They have been losing wars, so they actually what Pakistan has been doing is fighting indirect wars with India through terrorism.
I'm always confusing Al Qaeda and the Taliban. Is the same?
No, Taliban was basically a more of a
It's in Afghanistan.
Afghanistan movement, with a local agenda.
What means Al Qaeda is more wider
Yes.
Wider than mostly
Organization.
Arabic organization.
organization.
Yes, Saudi Arabic, the largely sponsored by. Yes, yeah. But as we will see in the video now, also Taliban has getting a more and more global agenda. So not only regarding the Afghan Kashmir region, but also they have a more global perspective. But Al Qaeda is basically a sponsored movement by Saudi Arabia.
By the way,
Which is one of the big strategic partners of the United States, interesting.
Bin Laden was born in Jeddah,
So,
Saudi Arabia.
yes,
They have
yeah.
a very big house. I
Yeah.
saw.
Oh, you saw it?
Yes, I drove around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, Al Qaeda, ISIL came from Al Qaeda, right?
ISIL, yes, but they are an offspring from Al Qaeda, but Al Qaeda and ISIL are not really on the same page.
Yeah, they're also from Sunni, but
Yeah.
different faction,
Yeah.
such as Arafi. So then it's more radical. So it's a
No, Kwa people
different
came
concept.
from Al Qaeda.
Oh,
no,
but-
no, it's different.
Mm.
It's different.
But actually, the leader of the ISIL was
Baghdadi?
initially Baghdadi. Was initially was the leader of the Iraq faction. I think the Iraq faction of Al Qaeda. So they have a background, but a different agenda. So the ISIL is really the caliphate, whereas Al Qaeda is more of a global fight against the United
By
States.
the way, the other discussion I just read it about concern because I read yesterday regarding American support to military against Syria, against ISIL, and they gave them training and invested $500 million. Actually, there are only very few people just give them training against ISIL. And finally, those people actually very strong connection to the Al Qaeda and military weapons will deliver to the ISIL. Actually,
This is
American government or intelligence didn't know that. Is it? Do you know that?
No, I'm not. But I'm not surprised because it always happens like that. United States supports one faction to fight another faction, and then within a couple of years, that faction turns itself around and starts to fight the United States. So the United States needs to find new factions.
Such things support Al Qaeda and against Assad, but it's stupid.
Well, it's an ongoing story, but it's a policy of divide and rule, because as long as people are fighting each other, they do not pose a direct threat to the American homeland. So it's a deliberate policy. So you can say it's stupid, but it's also by design. I don't think that the United States is that stupid. They realize.
No, my stupid means I'm thinking about even if they try to support ISIL, but ISIL will going to be beaten by every country in the world, right?
Yes.
And including Russia and Iran.
ISIL in itself will probably be over within a reasonable short amount of time.
But still, America try to support them. Right? Okay, let's go.
So Al Qaeda in the Kashmir region. So Al Qaeda is basically a kind of private army over there. They have the freedom to roam, a freedom they more or less control together with Taliban and other troops. They are a breeding ground for terrorism. And Al Qaeda being put under pressure by the Pakistan government, because they needed the support of the United States. Pakistan needed to make some kind of statement, some kind of action, and they sent the troops to Kashmir. Al Qaeda didn't like that, so they needed to relay the attention of the Pakistan troops and the Pakistani government. So they tried to provoke a conflict between India and Pakistan, so that divert their attention away. But conflicts between Pakistan and India are very dangerous because they're both nuclear powered. So Al Qaeda and Taliban in Pakistan administered Kashmir are helping terrorists trained in Afghanistan, so Pashtun, to infiltrate India administered Kashmir. So they are using the Pakistan region just to bring terrorists into the Indian part of Kashmir. So basically, these armies are using each other. Pakistan are using these kinds of terrorist organizations to gain leverage against India. We saw in the video from The Economist just now that it is suspected that the Mumbai attacks were actually Pakistan played a very strong role behind the scenes in that terrorist attack. And it is also here in 2010, the US Defense Secretary Robert Gates stated that Al Qaeda was seeking to destabilize the region and planning to provoke a nuclear war between India and Pakistan. So divert attention away from Al Qaeda so that they could operate more freely. So basically, we have different terrorist groups. We have Pakistan, who is more or less who's on the one hand supporting these groups because they can leverage their power against India. On the other hand, they need to crack down on these groups because they need support from the United States for development and things. So there is a very split reality going on in Pakistan. So it's not really sure which side they're actually on. They need both sides, basically, and they're trying to play both hands. Now this leads to a big confusion in the region.
By the way, last sentence say, Robert Gates say something?
Robert Gates states that actually made an official statement that Al-Qaeda was seeking to destabilize the region and try to provoke a nuclear war between Pakistan and India.
Yeah, by the way, I just a little skeptical Al-Qaeda. They have, Pakistan, they produce nuclear weapon, right?
Yes.
And they might be Al-Qaeda, might be some seeking to get some information or stealing some nuclear weapon or something. Is this capable?
I don't think that is the issue here. I mean, of course, Al-Qaeda would be very interested in obtaining these kinds of weapons or means, but I don't think that a terrorist organization will be capable, other than a nation, will be capable of developing nuclear weapons themselves. I mean, maybe obtaining nuclear weapons from the former Soviet Union, Russia, would be something that is more likely. But developing their own nuclear weapons as a terrorist organization, I don't think that is possible.
Like those management for protecting the nuclear weapon might be like in Pakistan. It's more easier to get certain information.
Well, Pakistan is not known for their secrecy or the fact that the non-proliferation of. I think they're the number one source of proliferation in the world when it comes to nuclear weapons and nuclear weapon know-how and materials. So in that respect, you're right. Whether or not they will put it directly in the hands of Al-Qaeda or not, I don't know. I mean, they need Al-Qaeda to gain leverage against India because they cannot do it in the normal way. They have been beaten and beaten and beaten and beaten again by India. So this is a big frustration for Pakistan. But whether or not they will take the risk of putting nuclear weapons in the hands of Al-Qaeda, I don't know. Maybe through a relation by the big donors, because actually it's not Al-Qaeda, it's Saudi Arabia that's behind this.
Because I didn't know the Russian intelligence use nuclear materials for Russian espionage in London. And several people dead, I think 5-6 years ago, right?
You mentioned this.
Yeah?
I'm not really familiar with this. You said that the very small doses of like yeah.
This sort of things is spread to using for Al-Qaeda. It's
If
a
it-
very easy area in the world, right?
I'm not really. Well, let's put it this way. I don't know whether this is really true or whether this is a hoax.
Because I did know that through some information from intelligence, Western intelligence information 5-6 years ago.
So
Many people did actually, but did not inform.
So this is the maybe you could share a little bit of the background behind this this story.
Many people did actually, but they never informed.
So Uno-san also explained to me maybe a few months ago about this incident that there was a Russian spy who was killed and with some kind of nuclear material.
Yes.
And there was a capability of Russia to actually make very, very small, tiny nuclear materials and poison drink water and things like that. And according to your sources, it would
Actually,
it be?
those materials fled some location. And not only one person dead, but many people dead actually
In London.
in London. Never this all information was open to the public.
It would make a good novel.
Yeah, but this is so risky. So this is confidential, concealed by intelligence. Never open. But many people did actually. But this whole thing is happening now. If the Pakistan government tried to retain some sort of material.
If there was something like it, then it would be very dangerous in the hands of terrorists.
But this is not nuclear weapon. This is not burst. This is just a spread.
Yeah.
Only dead 100, 200.
Yeah.
That's all.
But that's like using mustard gas or things like
Yes,
that.
chemical weapons.
It's local.
Chemical weapons.
Yeah, actually, you remember 2001. I stayed in Islamabad after 9/11. That time, I stayed in Afghanistan. So then, that time, through the operation of Pakistani military, they found out some Taliban's office, Taliban's camp. They find out some design of nuclear weapons. Nuclear.
When?
Taliban?
No, in Taliban, and so then they said that they thought that, and then they arrested some people, some sympathizers of the Pakistan side. They are nuclear scientists there, and so then they were concerned about the Taliban and those Pakistan's scientists who were having fundamental idea. So then they spread out the sort of dirty bomb or radioactive materials. So then that is very very big concern of Pakistan side and of course the United States security authority.
I didn't know that Taliban had the mental capacity nor the means to actually.
Sort of. It's not exact nuclear weapons, but some scientific documents they had.
But so actually, I think if you're good at googling, there's already a lot of information. That
A lot
you
of
can-
information.
And I tell you, the most easiest place in the world is Japan. So ISIS now is targeting Japanese nuclear material in Japan. It's the most easiest in Japan.
Or the Netherlands, I heard.
Netherlands is also.
Well, like a Dutch company was the main source for Pakistan to be able to develop nuclear weapon. Urenco.
In the 20 years.
I think probably longer actually.
So there is the Bhutto administration's time. So then they, after Indian nuclear test in 1974. So then sometime after that, they started secretly. They started. That time, Bhutto, Benazir's Bhutto's father, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, he started that, create that intervention.
That's me.
Okay. I want to give you a brief piece of video to give you an idea about what's going on in that region.